Grace.
Good, good, good. Nice to have everyone here. We'll start shortly.
Let's open the meeting and then let us start, my elder. Okay. I'm thinking I've removed that so that maybe. Yeah, so that we.
My pastor, are we ready now?
Yes, yes, my elder, we are.
Okay. All right. We're going to start shortly right now. I just want to confirm that the ICT, our technical crew, are ready with the live streaming. Then we start. Technical crew, are we ready?
Yes, we are. Thank you. You can go ahead.
All right. Okay, thank you very much. All right. Sorry, I had a glitch in my network. Thank you. Good afternoon and happy Sabbath, everyone. Special thanks to Shani Central members and members from NATA, and for everyone who is joining us and our special guests whom we will be unfolding very soon. For a start, we're going to have a prayer, an opening prayer. Then I will hand over to Pastor Matlangu, who will now give us the next step, and from there we take it on. Let's bow our heads for prayer. Heavenly Father, we want to thank you so much for this afternoon. We want to thank you because you are not a God of confusion. We want to thank you because even when things are not clear to us, you have raised up people, you have raised up prophets to clear the way. Lord, this afternoon we have come before your throne once again to learn more about the issue of vaccination, the vaccines. There are questions, there are doubts, there are things that we still need clarity on. Lord, we want to pray that as we have a discussion on this subject, on this topic, that you will take control. We want to pray, oh Lord, that whatever position our hearts have taken, whatever positions we have taken, Lord, that we will allow your spirit to guide us into all truth. We pray, oh Lord, that at the end of this meeting today, that everyone listening, whether directly on this platform, Zoom, or on the Facebook, on YouTube, Lord, that you will help us to understand. And if there are further questions, you will help us to ask. We pray that your spirit will dwell in us as we have this conversation this Holy Sabbath. Thank you for the presenter, the lead presenter today, that you will guide him and you help him to lead us through this subject. We pray that at the end of this, we will glorify your name. Your church will be edified. We have prayed in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Pastor Malamo, please, could you please give us a general welcome and introduce our speaker for today? Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon and happy Sabbath to all of us. Thank you, Elder Anakuru and the whole team of leadership. In particular, we want to welcome ourselves into this very, very important session. We are so excited. God says, why are you wandering into the wilderness? Why are you going into Egypt? Is there no balm in Gilead? And so we have come to reason together. Like Isaiah 1:18 says, come, let us reason together. So we want to come and reason together. Elder Anakuru, I have a team. I'm at Maranatha. We are over maybe 60 or 70 people that are physical, and we have screened it on the board. So we are connected with you. We are so grateful in that God can allow time and space, even when the chips are down and the grapes are sour. God rules and overrules. So thank you, leadership, and thank you, every member. There are a lot of philosophies and ways that are blowing, bringing confusion. We are a people that do not with confusion because our God is reasoning together. I want to welcome in a special way our health ministries director from the SID, from our division, Dr. Alexis Llaguno and his family. Dr. Llaguno, welcome and thank you for coming over into Macedonia. Dr. Llaguno is a medical practitioner. He understands all these things. I deal with verses, but he deals with verses. Is an ordained minister, a long-serving member in the Seventh-day Adventist Church in terms of ministry. I have worked with him for many years in Zimbabwe. We have done work together also in Swaziland, and so we are together. We are so happy. Dr. Llaguno, welcome, and may God bless you. The Spirit of the Lord is going to feed and guide you into the journey of today. We are going to listen, like Elder Anokuru has said, we have a number of questions that we have already sent to you, but we'll also want to add some more and seek for clarification as the Lord shall guide us. Prayer has already been offered. May God bless you thoroughly as we delve into this exercise. The platform is yours, Dr. Llaguno. Welcome. Thank you, and we love you so much.
Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Sabbath, and thank you so much, Pastor Malango. I'm so happy that we could reconnect with each other. We have been working several times in the past, and this is another reason that we should be really working together, especially with the stakes that are high. It is a matter of life and death, whom you believe. And I'm so glad that you have actually made this arrangement so that we could address that would help our brethren. Okay? So now, let me just share my screen. Okay. 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 Looking into the challenge that we have for this afternoon, I have titled my topic is COVID challenges, and choices. You know, when there are challenges, that means there are choices that we have to make, but it is very important that we make the right choices. First of all, I would like to first go into the Bible so that we would really focus also our minds on the things that come from God. Now, when I think about this COVID pandemic that is taking place, I cannot just help but look or compare the situation to the siege of Jerusalem way back when Zedekiah was the king of Judah, and you had the likes of Jeremiah and Daniel and also Nebuchadnezzar. Now, remember that during the siege of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar had 3 sieges in Babylon. One was the time of Jehoiakim, and that's the time that Daniel and his friends were brought to Babylon. The second was the time of Jehoiakim, and the third was actually Zedekiah. And that was the longest siege because the siege lasted for 18 months. Now, the thing was that during the time of the siege, there were 2 conflicting ideas that were going on. One was you surrender, and that was the position of Jeremiah. He said, the word of the Lord says that you have to surrender. And the other one said, no, God is going to deliver us. So there were 2 opposing opinions, but yet in the end, your life depends on it. Now, it is very easy for us to come to the conclusion that Jeremiah was right. And it's true because we know now by retrospect and from the past, we know that what Jeremiah was preaching was right. But now, when you look into the people who were there who did not know the future, how did you know who was right? Whether the false prophets were right or was Jeremiah right? And remember, whoever you believe in, your life depends on it. That means your life is going to hang on the balance and that you are going to either live or die to whoever you are going to believe in. So let's see. Now, here are the what we call the assertions of the false prophets. They said, no, do not surrender. As Zedekiah, no, God is going to deliver us. And of course, they had several proofs. They had several statements to back their assertion that God was going to deliver them. Remember, during the time of Hezekiah, the Assyrians were actually destroyed. 185,000 people or soldiers were destroyed by the avenging angel of God. So they said that is going to happen again. Similarly, during the time of Jehoshaphat, wherein they were attacked by Moab, Jehoshaphat arranged for a choir, and instead of fighting, they were singing, and God delivered them. And of course, they're going to say in 2 Chronicles, anyway, how can God allow this place to be destroyed because it is his temple? So they had so many assertions, so many ideas that God is going to deliver them. But here is Jeremiah. He said, no, this city is going to be destroyed and all the inhabitants are going to be wiped out. So it is better that we are going to surrender because this is the will of God. Unfortunately, because he had preached the gospel of surrender, he was branded as a collaborator and a traitor to the nation of Israel, okay? And as I said, it is easy for us to conclude now who was right. It was Jeremiah. But what about those at the time? And similarly, maybe 20 years or 15 years or 10 years from now, it would be who has the right idea about COVID virus or the COVID vaccine. Because then by the time we would be able to know and whether those pro-vaccines are right or what we call the anti-vaxxers. But as I said, God does not leave us just to handle things by ourselves. He provides a clear, this is what Mrs. White says in Patriarchs and Prophets, God is going to give us, see, he will give us sufficient evidence. He is not going to remove all the doubts, okay? But he will give sufficient evidence on which to base our faith. And this is it right now. God is giving us sufficient evidence. But the thing is that, are we going to listen to God? Okay? And we know in Hebrews 11:1, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. That means, see, very clear in Hebrews, you have to have evidence to base your faith on. not just supposition, not just conjectures. God always provides evidence, and now we are going to examine that evidence when it comes to COVID vaccination. Okay, now, this is what happened, okay? The evidence of Jeremiah, okay? To show that Jeremiah was actually on the right track, God had revealed several of the indications that he was really a true prophet. Remember, Hananiah had predicted that, no, do not surrender. But then Jeremiah said, Hananiah, because you have spoken against the word of God, you are going to die within this year. And exactly, Hananiah died, I think, in 7 months' time. That was already sufficient evidence that Jeremiah was the prophet or the messenger of God. Or similarly, because, as I had mentioned, there were already 2 exiles that went to Babylon, Daniel and his friends Ezekiel. They could have actually asked, because Jeremiah said, surrender and live, and it is going to be well with you. Okay? Have a vaccine, and you are going to live, and all is going to be well with you. They could have actually asked the people in Babylon, hey, what is happening there? Then the Babylonian exiles would tell them, oh, we are being treated here well. We are not being molested. We are not being tortured. And of course, in Deuteronomy, God said that if you are going to disobey my word, you are going to result in siege and famine and cannibalism. So they should have checked themselves. And of course, we know that after 70 years, this captivity was fulfilled. And this is exactly what happened, because people, most of the people in Jerusalem at the time, believed in the lie of the false prophets. They were actually killed. They were even eating their children. And even Zedekiah, because he refused to believe in Jeremiah, he was blinded and his sons were being killed in his presence. In short, they were all dead. Why? It's because they obeyed, they listened to the false prophets. And this is it. Whereas the people who believed in Jeremiah, of course, they had a long travel from Jerusalem to Babylon. It took them about 7 months, but still they arrived well and they were treated well. And they actually settled in peace. So you can see. But what is important, they were alive. So now you can see whether alive or dead. And this is it. When it comes to COVID now, the choice of who and what to believe is going to determine whether you are going to live or you are going to die. So let us now deal. First of all, we have to realize that the church strategy has not changed. We are still promoting what we call lifestyle changes, new start, celebrations, creation, meaning we continue to encourage people to embark in a plant-based diet, to drink lots of water, to do exercise, fresh air, okay? And that is a lifestyle strategy. And I tell you, that strategy is very useful now. It is confirmed because we know that 86.2% of all the COVID deaths, okay, this is in New York, they have found out that it is because people had lifestyle diseases. That means if you're actually following lifestyle, new start, and celebrations in the past, then it is going to prevent you from having comorbidities. Because you see, hypertension and diabetes and coronary disease, these are all related lifestyle diseases. And this could have been prevented when we actually are going to follow new start and celebrations. But of course, to some of us, it is already too late. But the thing is that now that you have already this comorbidity, then what are we going to do? Okay, so this virus actually shows that our lifestyle message is very useful, because then it prevents what we call chronic diseases or non-communicable diseases, which contributes to COVID deaths. As I said, 86.2% of all the deaths are associated with comorbidities. And the comorbidities that are there, patients with high blood pressure, with diabetes, with obesity, and number 4, with AIDS. Of course, that one that was shown there is from New York. and HIV is not very common there, so it is not included. But here in South Africa, one of the comorbidities of COVID is HIV. And you know that HIV really, most of the time, is a lifestyle disease. It is highly preventable if we are going to follow the word of God, stay chaste, and be really pure in our approach to sexual activities. For those who are not married, no sexual activity, and those who are married, to actually just be faithful. So these are comorbidities. Okay, like for instance, here in South Africa, they have found out that if you have HIV/AIDS, your chances of death is 2.3 times compared to the normal population. So now COVID is really a validation of our lifestyle. But the thing is that is lifestyle only inadequate when it comes to COVID? So let us realize that the church is really promoting what we call vaccination. It is not what we call either or. Some people just say, oh, what you do is you just do lifestyle, and that is going to be enough. But it has been shown in many times that following the lifestyle really helps. It actually lessens your chances of getting COVID. And if you get COVID, you can recover faster. But sometimes, especially if you are above 60 years old, that is not adequate. You really need to embark in vaccination. That's why our stand is we encourage lifestyle and we encourage vaccination. It is not either or, but they are actually lifestyle and vaccination. Okay? That's the reason why the General Conference came up with a statement and say this is the statement which was in 2014. The church is encouraging us to have what we call vaccination. There is no religious or faith-based reason not to encourage our adherents. There is no text in the Bible that say you should not undergo vaccination. See, responsible immunization, thought through, studied and evidence-based, as we have discussed, you see. It is very important. So the final analysis, the church is actually making a recommendation. It is actually encouraging. The church is not what we call passive about it. The church is not silent on its position. It is encouraging, taking a solid position. Why? Some people will say, the church is really meddling. They should just concentrate on soul winning. Why? Is because the church loves you. The church loves me. That's the reason it comes up with this guideline, because we don't want you to be sick seriously, and we don't want you to die. Why should you die, O Israel, when there is a solution? You see? So vaccination really is very helpful. You know, the same position that the church says, okay, you undergo or you embark on healthy lifestyle, vegetarian diet, plant-based diet, exercise, water, temperance. Now the church is not mandating, but the church is encouraging. Have you seen that we have actually forced people to go into plant-based diet? No. Have you seen that we have actually encouraged people to, to mandate them to do exercise? No. We encourage, we give scientific evidence and say, okay, from all of this evidence, we encourage you to embark on exercise, temperance, plant-based diet. And similarly, when it comes to the vaccine, we are also encouraging because we love our members. We want them to be healthy. We want them to be spared from all of the expenses. And especially, we want them to be spared from death and also to be healthy so that they can become more effective witnesses for the kingdom of God. Okay? I don't know what's happening now. My screen has, let me just first okay, and see, because then it has okay, let's go again. Seems that it has frozen. Looks like the devil is not so happy about this. Okay, share screen again, let me see, okay? Okay, let's see now. We are encouraging, as I said, okay? That's the one, okay? Now, why is the church encouraging? Let us go into the principles of immunization. You know, when you are going to have immunization or vaccination, it prepares the body. There are what we call elements that are going to be introduced to your body, and these elements will prepare you for an attack, okay? So that when the virus comes, then there are already soldiers ready. There are chemicals, there are armaments that are ready to really fire. So when it enters, bang, 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 you see? Whereas if you are going to wait for natural immunization, which is true, okay? When the virus enters, the virus just enters freely and the body does not offer any resistance at all. Maybe only about a few hours later, when it begins to realize that there is a foreign invader. And that is the time that the body starts to make soldier cells, weapons, and armaments to actually fight against the virus. So which is a better alternative? So that would you prefer that when the virus enters, that's the time that you're going to be prepared? Or that when the virus enters, you are already prepared, that you are going to launch what we call a counterattack, okay? For an example, if there is a thief going on or a killer in your vicinity, which would you prefer? Number one, that you are already prepared for it so that when the thief comes, you already have what we call trellis doors, you have alarm system, and that is what we do. We actually put what we call barriers, we put deterrents, and so many, some people even have guns in their houses so that if the thief comes or a killer comes, immediately they come. I'm not telling you to do that. But there are some people that say, anyway, I'm just going to see if the thief comes, it's good. If doesn't come, it's okay. When he comes, then that is the time I'm going to prepare. Which is a better alternative? Pre-prepared, you are already prepared, or you are only going to prepare when the time comes. As you know the reason. It is really very important to be prepared ahead than when the thief already comes. And that is exactly what happens when you have immunization. You are prepared for the virus to attack so that when the virus attacks, immediately it's going to be destroyed. See? Okay. Vaccination also operates with a natural immunity. That means the vaccine is going to use the mechanisms of the body to be able to produce a counter attack against the virus. So it is still natural, okay? Now let me just mention this to you because this is very important on your selection of a vaccine. Okay, generally the production of the vaccines are divided into two. One, you have actually a whole dead virus, and now it is being introduced into your body, and as a result, then the body is going to form antibodies. It is just like showing a picture, like for instance, if you have a killer in your neighborhood, in your communities, what you do is that if you have a picture, then you show the picture to the community so that people will be aware. That is exactly how the vaccine works when it comes to Sinopharm. But you also have the other vaccine, which actually only exposes a small part of the virus, and then the body has a response, okay? Most of the viruses, most of the vaccines are really exposure to the part of the virus, and we call it a spike protein. So now, how is it possible that you just introduce a part of the spike protein and then the body is going to mount a counter attack? Okay, let me just have an example, okay? That is how the virus looks like. You have a lot of spikes, and these spikes are really the starter of the virus, okay? Without that spike, the virus cannot enter into your body. Without that spikes, the body cannot replicate. It has to have what we call that spike protein to be able to enter into the cells of the body. Okay, so in essence, the spike protein is the starter of the virus. It is the ignition. Now, like for instance, this car, maybe if somebody will give me this beautiful car, no matter how beautiful this car is, if it does not have a good starter, it is not going to work. No matter how comfortable, how luxurious, how expensive, if you are not going to have the proper starter, this car is going to be useless. And this is it. Similarly with the virus. It is the spike protein that actually makes it able to enter. And once the virus is able to enter, it is going to produce all the rest of the havoc. So now, then the scientist said, aha, in order for us to be able to destroy the virus, what we're going to do is to come up with a mechanism by which the spike protein is going to be destroyed. The starter or the ignition of the virus is going to be destroyed, then the virus is going to be destroyed. And that is exactly what is happening with most of the vaccines that were developed. Okay, now I know there is some questions that were posed to me already so that I can make already some answers. Okay, you know, they said, how come it took us so long? I mean, a short time. And then now we have actually the vaccines and we don't know the long-term effects. Well, it is true. When it comes to the mRNA, it is true because the technology is relatively new, okay? But the technology, or what we call the research, have been there for the past 20 to 30 years. It is the first time that they are using what we call mRNA as a means of making a vaccine, okay? So look, this is actually what you should look, okay, for the because I know some of you are not so comfortable because the vaccine mRNA is still new technology and you still don't know the long-term effects. Okay, now the mRNA technology has been there for about 20 years, and now we have the vaccine, and the vaccine that falls under that category are Pfizer and Moderna. We have it here in South Africa. In fact, I myself got vaccinated with Pfizer. Okay, I already had my second dose of Pfizer, and thank God I am doing well. Now, when it comes to the viral vectors, it is also relatively new, but this has already been going on because of the Ebola vaccine. The Ebola vaccine actually uses what we call the viral vectors, meaning you use a virus to be able to introduce the spike protein. Example, if Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, and Gamaleya from Russia. But the killed virus, like Sinovac and Sinopharm and the one from India, they are killed virus. And this has been going on for the past 70 years. I think some of you have vaccinated, have allowed your children to be vaccinated with MMR, measles, mumps, and rubella, and whooping cough. And sometimes some of you may have gotten influenza vaccine. These actually have the same as Sinovac and Sinopharm. So the long-term effect of this virus is already studied through the other vaccines. Now, you have also what we call the recombinant. Now, an example is Novavax. Now, Novavax is not yet really readily available, but it is still being processed. Example of Novavax, like hepatitis B. Some of you have received hepatitis B vaccine. It is the same way that recombinant Novavax is being made. So it's not a new one. Or for rabies, okay? You were bitten by the dog and then they gave you rabies vaccine. That's actually recombinant, okay? And also insulin production. Maybe some of you have diabetes, and because of diabetes, you are taking insulin. They have produced insulin because of recombinant. So really, what is long-term is more for mRNA and Johnson AstraZeneca, okay? Okay, here's another question. How come Pfizer cannot be sued in long-term effects? It is actually true, and even the manufacturers are saying, yes, we still do not know the long-term effects. Of course, we have studied it, but unfortunately, it takes time for us to be able to know. But we know that the vaccine is safe, okay? The reason for that is that when the vaccine was made, like for instance, in America, what they did was that they have what we call a Public Readiness and Emergency Preparedness Act. And I think many of the countries have that. They said, okay, we are going to exempt the drug companies that are making from being sued from 2020 to 2024. So for the next 4 years, it is true. Whatever the vaccine, we cannot sue because the governments gave them permission so that they are going to really manufacture a vaccine. But then, remember, you cannot actually, the final approval is from the FDA, okay? Because when a vaccine is going to be approved, what is very important is number one, safety, okay? Even though your vaccine can be effective, if it is not safe, it is not going to be approved. A very good example of this safety profile is, you know, people are asking the question, why is it that until now, there is no cure or drug for cancer? I tell you, there is a drug, but the problem is that they are not safe. They are efficacious. They are effective, but they are not safe. A very good example is muriatic acid. If you are going to put muriatic acid in the cancer cells are going to die. You know what muriatic acid is? That is the one that you are using to clean your toilets. When your toilets are dirty and yellow, you can actually put it in the cancer cells and the cancer cells will be destroyed. But the problem is that it is also going to kill the individual. See? So first of all, the vaccine or anything that is going to be introduced has to be safe. And number two, it has to be effective, okay? Now, for instance, a vaccine, in order for it to be considered efficacious or effective, should be at least having 50% protection. And all of the vaccines have actually that are here in South Africa are at least 50% to 95% effective. Okay, like for instance, in the case of Pfizer is about 95% effective. Sinovac is only about 65%. That's the reason why South Africa actually stopped AstraZeneca, because they realized that AstraZeneca was not effective to the Beta variant here in South Africa. South Africa already had ordered, but they said, no, we cannot use it because it's not effective. Now, there is a question. They said, well, you know, the traditional healers have actually come up with a vaccine that is effective, and how come it is not being used? Okay. As I told you, it might be effective, okay, but is it safe? Okay, it's just like the muriatic acid. It might be effective in killing cancer cells, but then it is also going to kill you, okay? So the endpoint of the vaccine is really to prevent mild to moderate to severe. Mild, well, you just have a little bit fever, a bit of coughing, sneezing. Moderate, you might end up in the hospital, but severe is the one that you land in the ICU, okay? Prevent severe COVID, and this is it because all of the vaccines prevent actually severe COVID. You might not be able to prevent mild to moderate and people still get infected, but it is very important that it prevents you from getting severe COVID, hospitalization, and even death, and also to prevent the spread. And finally, the vaccine is supposed to prevent the coming out of variants. So don't be surprised that some people are still going to get COVID after vaccination. It does not necessarily mean, it does not mean, okay, it comes from the vaccine, but rather because, for instance, Sinovac is only 65% effective. Comes to AstraZeneca, also the same thing, or Pfizer is only 95%, you see? Mild, at least only sneezing and sore throat. At least we can actually stomach that. But really, what is very important is severe COVID. We don't want you to end up in the ICU. We don't want you to be dead. We don't want you to be hospitalized and spend a lot of money. Okay, we say that it's going to alter the DNA. Really, it's a long explanation, but I tell you, if you look into the physiology, the DNA is the one that influences the RNA, not the RNA around. Not only that, but when the RNA is going to be injected, once it delivers what we call the recipe for making of the spike protein, it is destroyed. Okay. Now, if you are actually afraid of DNA alterations, then you should also be very careful, because these are just some of the chemicals out there that causes DNA alteration. Okay. We make a big fuss of vaccines, yet that is not yet even proven, but there are other things that are proven, yet we continue to indulge in them. For instance, in the case of benzopyrene, tobacco chemicals, okay, a Seventh-day Adventist, okay, we are free from that. Alcoholic drinks, okay, we are free from that. But here is one thing. You know, when you are going to what we call do a braai for meat, and I know here in South Africa, usually when you make a braai, you have really a very fat, what we call meat, maybe 500 grams or 750 grams, and always laced with fat. When that fat is going to be burned, it is going to be converted to benzopyrene, which is the same toxic substance from tobacco. Okay, you might not be smoking, but about 500 grams of steak is equivalent to about 500 sticks of cigarettes. Okay, viruses, for instance, okay, hepatitis virus, cervical cancer, this can cause DNA alteration, and as a result, you come up with cancer. Nitrosamine, that is the pinkish chemical in sausages, currywurst, corned beef, that actually can cause DNA alterations. Okay, here we are making a lot of fuss with the vaccine causing DNA alteration, which is not proven and which is not scientific. Yet when it comes to other things that we know of, we are not even trying to evade them. Okay, contains chip. Okay, hey, now this is actually the actual size of a chip there. Okay, and that is just like the size of a grain of rice. You cannot have a smaller, what we call chip than that. That is the smallest so far. Okay, well, we cannot find that in the vaccine because the vaccine is just all fluid. There is no solid matter. But you know, the thing is that they say it has nanoparticles and that they can actually transmit and you can be located. But I tell you, if you are concerned about that, then you have to throw away your cell phones. You're going to throw away your smartphones and laptops because that is the one that can easily trace. When you are having the cell phone, that is really an RF device. So please remove the idea that these vaccines have what we call nanoparticles or radio frequency peaks. Okay? Anyway, mark of the beast 666. They are using, but we have to realize, okay, the mark of the beast is really an allegiance. Okay, whoever you are going to render your obedience and your allegiance, that is the mark of the beast. You see, we have to realize that the mark of the beast is really what we call worship. Okay, and we worship the person whom we obey. And fortunately, some people will say, okay, I will just obey the Sabbath, but I can have one girlfriend and one wife. Okay. Not only that, but today we're having all sorts of what we call sexual orientation. Okay? Do you think you are going to receive the mark of God if you are keeping the Sabbath, but you are not keeping actually sexual purity or other things? Please, we have to remember that really getting the mark of the beast is really to whom we render our allegiance and our obedience. Any person who is not obeying God has the mark of the beast, and we actually gauge our obedience of God. Okay, And I tell you, whether it's going to be vaccination or no vaccination, this is going to happen wherein people cannot buy and sell unless they have the mark of the beast. It is going to happen, whether there's going to be vaccine or not, okay, because that has been prophesied. See, SDA's understanding of the mark of the beast is an allegiance that identifies the bearer as loyal to the power presented by the beast. This is the GC position paper. Now, of course, the vaccine, you can have some side effects, sore throat, pain, pain in the muscle, fever, fatigue, allergic reaction, and syncope. Okay, these are very mild reactions, okay? And I myself, when I had the vaccination, I had sore in my arm, and then I felt a little bit feverish and a little bit weak, but after 2 days, they all disappeared. So that is normal. And some people say that when that happens, that means that your body now is producing antibodies to be able to produce against the virus. What is really very, very dangerous if you go into what we call anaphylactic shock. Anaphylactic shock is that you are going to develop difficulty of breathing, and also there is going to be edema in the lungs, and also what we call clots. These ones, especially VITT or blood clots, they are found in AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson, whereas myocarditis or myopericarditis is an infection of the muscle of the heart and the covering of the heart, okay? When it comes to VITT or blood clots, the thing is that they have found out, especially in young women. Now, we don't know whether it is contributory or whether it is really the result of a vaccine. But as you know, young women, many of them are actually taking what we call hormonal pills or what we call oral contraceptives. The oral contraceptives in itself can cause clotting. That's why they're making studies about this. When it comes to myopericarditis, which is an inflammation of the muscle of the heart, they found out to be in young male persons. But they've also found
I'm not sure. It seems that our presenter, Dr. Alex, it seems his network has kicked him out. I'm not sure about that, but I think he will join us shortly. Yeah, I think the network kicked him out. Okay, while he tries to get himself back online, if you have any questions so far, okay, he's back. Okay, Doc, please, you can go ahead. Thank you. Unmute yourself, please, and continue. Doc, please unmute yourself. You are muted for now.
Okay, thank you. I'm trying to reboot. Sorry about this. I'm trying to reboot my computer. I don't know. I think I'm with all of these changes, I realized that I did not plug my power. But anyway.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you.
Let me just first.
Okay, while he's working on that, please, if you still have questions as a result of the presentation, please put your questions on the chat box. I'm going to coordinate them and collect them, and at least we'll be able to address them as much as possible. So please kindly drop your questions as we proceed. Thank you.
Yes, please, whatever your questions are. I would be glad to answer them now. Okay. Okay, I think I'm going to be on again now. Sorry about this.
Recording in progress.
Okay. Start video. Let me just go. Okay, are we in?
Yeah, can you off one of your devices? I think the two of them, the speakers are on. Can you just off
Yeah,
one
that's
of
what
them?
I'm doing now.
Thank you.
Okay, so. Okay, one moment. Sorry. Okay. Now, if you are going to actually look about this presentation here, you can actually see that there is really very little what we call cause of distress for people who are going to die. In fact, more people actually, they said that the vaccine clots, 2 people died out of 4 million. So 2 million, I cannot see because it's not close, okay? Where in aspirin, you can actually have a death in 10,000 people. As you know, aspirin is being used. And then aspirin is even more dangerous, you see, compared to what we call the vaccine clots. You have 2 people out of, was it 4 million doses of AstraZeneca. So you can see that the risk is very, very low. It is just like actually you have to realize that in medicine, we have what we call risk versus benefit. Now, a very good example of risk versus benefit is an airplane ride. We all know that when we are going to ride an airplane, there is always the possibility of having a crash, okay? But then we still continue to take the airplane. Why? Because we know it is beneficial. We need to do it for our business and also to see loved ones. So even though we have that what we call risk at the back of our minds, yet we are looking at the benefits. Similarly, the risk in riding an airplane is very, very minimal, and yet the benefits are very, very extensive. Similarly, when it comes to the virus vaccine, the risk is there, but it is very, very minimal, okay? So you have actually a greater benefit to save lives, okay? Like this, for instance, risk benefits. As I said, what we would like to prevent is severe COVID infection, because that is the one that leads you to ICU and death, okay? It might not be able to prevent a lot of mild to moderate, because that is not really so serious, but yet what is important is that it prevents severe COVID and landing in the ICU. It also decreases sick time, decreases transmission, and of course, vaccine is cheap against the hospital, okay? Without the vaccine, you can actually end up in the ICU, you can be in ventilator, you can be in dialysis. Not only that, but you can give it to your members. Not only that, but some people, because of COVID, they had amputation, they had heart attacks, they had clots, and they had strokes, and they had kidney failures, okay? A very good example is people I know. One person actually was in the ICU for 4 weeks and even paid about $120,000, okay? That is more than R1 million, okay? And yet died. Another one in the ICU, more than 100,000, and then after 3 weeks died. Now, can you just imagine the amount of money that you are going to pay, plus all of the emotional strain and drain to your relatives visiting you in the hospital, and yet in the end you are going to die. So this is what really is very important when it comes to COVID vaccine, because it really helps to prevent what we call severe COVID, hospitalization, and even death. See? So we really have to realize that there is what we call a risk and benefit ratio, okay? And we know in medicine, our first what we call aim is do no harm. But unfortunately, that cannot be true all the time, because even water, okay, can actually cause harm. Some people can actually drown in water. If you are going to overdose yourself with water, you can die. Not only that, but also air. You know, air is very good. But if I am going to eject it into your veins, you can actually die. Now, a very good example is really when I was in Zambia and I was sick with malaria. I was sick with malaria. I was so sick and I was afraid that I had already what we call resistant malaria to the normal medications. I was so scared that finally I said, okay, why don't you just give me quinine? And they started to give me quinine by drip. And this quinine can cause ringing in your ears all the time, feeling like vomiting. All the time that I was in quinine for 7 days, I could not eat anything. I was just drinking water and also some liquids. But you see, I knew that my chances of survival against malaria was much better if I take quinine than if I did not take quinine. I know that it had the side effects of being dizzy and also nauseous and even ringing in my ears. Not only that, but the possibility that my heart can stop, and that is with quinine. But I said, my chances are much better if I am going to take quinine. And that's the reason why I am alive today, is because I actually took quinine and took the chance, okay? And this is it also when it comes to the vaccine. The adverse effects for the vaccine is really very minimum compared to the great benefit that it is going to do. Now, there is actually a one question, oh, you know, how come the sports people, they survive, they got sick with COVID, and it is true. Why? Number one is that the sports people, you don't actually get a sports people who are actually 50 years old or 60 years old. What? They cannot actually compete with the younger ones. So you realize that the age alone is already an advantage. Okay? Because this COVID, it's the people above 60 years old who are very vulnerable, get easily sick, and they die. Okay. Number two, the athletes are also doing a lot of exercise, and it's true. That's why we are saying you have to do lifestyle changes, because they have found out that exercise actually helps to prevent COVID. Okay. So your question is, why is it that the athletes are surviving even they have COVID? It's true. Why? Number one, they are young. Number two, they have a very good lifestyle. You see? But not all people are athletes. Not people are 60 years old. Like me, for instance, I'm above 60 years old. If you have about 100 people here in South Africa who get affected with COVID, about 85% are going to recover. So whether you are an athlete or not, you are going to recover. Okay, 85%. Okay, 85 to 90%. So about or 12% are going to go into moderate, meaning they are going to be confined in their homes. They are going to be maybe sick for 2 weeks, and some of them are going to end up in the hospital, but they are going to recover. The problem is that about 5% are going to go to severe, and out of that, 3% are going to die. Okay, here in South Africa, the case fatality rate is 3% death. You can look into the statistics. What does that mean? If you have 100 people who are sick with COVID, 3% are going to die. Okay, most of them are going to be old, but these days we can even find people who are young. Okay, 3%. What is 3% of 1 million? You tell me. Because you say, it's small anyway. Well, it might be small, but if it is going to be your spouse, your parents, your relatives, that is already a very big disaster. You cannot even think about statistics, okay? So what do you think if 1 million people, and here in South Africa, more than 1 million people have already been affected? I think it's 1.9 or even 2 million. That means out of 1 million, there are 30,000 people who are going to die. If you have 2 million, that means 60,000. Can you afford that? And all of this can be prevented if you are going to undergo vaccination. Okay. Anyway, this just shows you the mortality rate. You see 11 deaths, 0.003%. That's because of COVID vaccination. They're not even sure whether it's related to the vaccine or really related to the disease. Okay. So we are really racing against time, and it is very important so that you are also going to prevent the coming up of variants. We have now the Delta here in South Africa. The Beta is the variant that originated here in South Africa. If the virus was available at the time, that could have been prevented. Okay. Okay. Anyway, I think we're running out of time, but anyway, let me just put this one. Okay. Now, how about those who are not going to be willing to be vaccinated? Let us realize that these people have real fears. I know there are some people there who would just like to propagate conspiracy theories, or who would just like to show their abilities to know about what is happening. But I tell you, many people are there and opposed because they are afraid, and it's true. That's the reason why we should not impose. We are not the conscience of individual church members and recognize individual choice. So if the individual will say, I'm sorry, but I am not going to be vaccinated, let us respect them. Let us not make this vaccine an issue that is going to divide the church. As Christ has said, love one another. And instead, let us educate, let us give them the evidence, because we love them. We do not want them to be destroyed by this virus. Okay, so let us then be loving and kind to each other. If you don't want to be vaccinated, it's up to you, but we want to show you the proof that is there. Okay, and if you want, that is the statement from the General Conference about immunization. Okay, and so many other what we call articles in the web about the church stand on vaccination, which is going to help you. And finally, you know, if we are going to be vaccinated, it is then the church can open earlier. We can be meeting again with each other. Not only that, but it is also going to help us to prevent us from getting sick and dying, so that we can propagate the everlasting gospel and fulfill the great commission that Jesus has given us. Thank you so much for the opportunity that you have given me. Okay, I am open for questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Llaguno, for the presentation and for helping us to have a broader understanding of the topic, and for addressing some of the, at least the themes that emerged from the questions that arose earlier. So we want to thank you very much. We are going to, I'm just going to point your attention to some questions that came real time while you were speaking. One of them is, okay, it's about the issue of the ingredient in the vaccine. Yes, I know you touched a little about it, but I think there's still some people are still thinking, okay, what are the ingredients in the vaccine? And I think you have mentioned the issue of long-term or short-term effects of the vaccine. It's still an ongoing process, so we can say the COVID itself is just within a period of, let's say, 2 years now, so it's still in real time. Definitely, we will know exactly what the ultimate impact is going to be. Okay, then what is the impact or effect of vaccine on those with comorbidities? Okay, I think maybe you could just address that. What is the impact of vaccine on those with comorbidity? And perhaps if you still want to shed a little more light on the ingredients in the vaccine, you can take those ones. Let me just get the other questions.
Well, for those with comorbidity, especially with cancer, with heart diseases, high blood pressure, diabetes, then you should in fact undergo vaccination, because people with comorbidities have a higher incidence of getting the infection and at the same time of dying. But I don't know, maybe they mean by other comorbidities. I don't know, but if you have actually a comorbidity which you think is going to be deleterious or is going to be dangerous for you to take the vaccine, you might as well see your doctor. These are actually the comorbidities that you should watch out, especially if you're having what we call allergic reaction. For instance, asthma, because asthma is an allergy and maybe you are going to develop an allergic to the vaccine. So my suggestion is that you should have the asthma controlled. And not only that, but you should see your doctor so that the doctor can properly recommend, okay? Because this allergy can also mean that you are allergic also to the vaccine, okay? When it comes to the particles of the vaccine, I don't think that they actually have what we call mercury. I know that in some of these vaccines, they have mercury. But let me just tell you what is happening in mercury, okay? We are concerned about mercury. The reason why they do that is they put for preservatives, but as I said, so far as I know, mercury is not part of the vaccine that are right now with the COVID vaccines. But for instance, you should realize that mercury is all around. Why? Is because here in South Africa, we have electrical generators which are being powered by coal. We get upset with ESCOM for giving us this power outage. But I tell you, when you are going to burn coal, one of the bad things that are going to be released is mercury. And this mercury goes into the air and it floats. And the ones that are easily affected are the vegetations that are around, you see. So vegetables, they have some mercury in the vegetables, you see. So, when I think about what we call ingredients, it's just like making a salad. When you make a salad, well, sometimes you have to put salt. You have to put a little bit maybe of sugar and other materials that are there to make it good. But unfortunately, these people, what they do is that they zero in and say, oh, do not take that salad. Why? Because it has salt. And salt can cause high blood pressure. It can cause actually oxidation. You see, and this is it. They're not looking at the whole picture, but rather they actually zero in. And unfortunately, it distorts the whole picture. Just like, as I said, they tell you not to eat salad because it has salt.
Okay, thank you very much. I've seen some hands up. We just want to deal with the questions that we already have. Then we'll take comments as time proceeds. Now, I just want to add to the issue of mercury. There is in some vaccines you have the ethyl mercury, which is just there for preservative. So some of the components we have in fact, the components in the vaccines are actually to preserve the vaccine or to enhance its activity, but they are not deleterious. Now, may you quickly ask, I'm going to say them, there is this issue of fetus in the vaccine, human fetus, aborted fetus, and so on and so forth. Could you just address that in regards to the vaccine?
I actually skipped my slide because of that, because I didn't think that some people would raise that issue. It is very true that in the development of the vaccine, okay, like for instance, I think it's AstraZeneca. I think they also use that in J&J, but I can be wrong. But I know that some of these vaccine development, they were using aborted fetal tissue. Okay, it's true. They actually used a fetus that was aborted a long time ago, and it was very clear it was called what we call elective. It was not what we call spontaneous abortion. But what they did was that they got the fetal lines. They use it only for the development, because you see, you have to test the virus in a cell to find out that it is going to elicit the kind of response that you want. It was not the original cells that were actually aborted, but it were cells that were actually being propagated. As you know, these days, they can make the cell lines continue to live And that is exactly what has happened. They had used some of these aborted cells to find out the development and how effective. It is different when you are going to say that it is found in the manufacturing. The the vaccine does not have in its manufacturing the fetal cells, but it was only in the development to find out how the vaccine is going to be react when it is going to be exposed to a human cell. Now, the question is that even the Roman Catholic Church, which is, their really stand when it comes to abortion is very clear, no exemption for abortion. They in fact actually says, that one is actually acceptable. The bishops of the Catholic Church, they said, why? It's because you are not actually using for the manufacturing. It is only during what we call the development to find out if the vaccine is going to be effective. A very good you see, Joseph was being sold, and after that he actually said, my brothers, you intended something evil, but God had turned evil for good. And it is true, it's very possible that this abortion was evil, but then God can turn it to something good. Okay. The other example is, for instance, if you have actually a family, the father is actually a womanizer, even a cheater to his family. He is not a good Seventh-day Adventist. He even cheats in his business. And then he comes up with a son. Okay. And the son becomes a pastor. Okay. Now, are you going to say, do not listen to that son pastor because you see the father is really a womanizer, he was even a cheater, he was not even behaving well in church? You see? And this is it. God can turn something bad into something good if we allow God to do that in our lives.
Thank you very much. The Johnson, should you have any additional information, please, you can just add more information to that. I just also want to re-emphasize, Doc, that the vaccine, the final product itself does not contain the cell lines or the aborted features in quote, as it said. Now, when it comes to drug development, whatever drug that exists in the market today, you start with you start from the in vitro studies. So you synthesize a drug, you go to the in vitro studies, you move to the in vivo studies, then before you now go to the clinical trials, you do all these processes to eliminate one, toxicity. Then two, you want to be sure that the drug you are manufacturing is also efficacious. So if you are going to study, if you're going to do an anti-cancer drug now, you need cell lines. You need cells that have been that are originate from cancer cells, either from human. There are cell lines. There are cells that are actually that proliferate in the laboratory. You use the petri dish, whatever. Do you study the activity of your drug in the cell line? Then based on that, then you can make progress. You can go now to the rat or to the mice, to the rat, to the rabbit, to the whatever before you get to the human being. Even when you come to the human being, you now need to check how safe is this drug. Even when the drug is approved, there is what we call monitoring of the drug. After 3 years, 5 years of whatever, if the general populace react negatively to the drug, these drugs are usually withdrawn from the market. It is an ongoing process, and it's exactly the same thing. So the virus flourishes when a human cell lines are used. So you need a cell line that will help you to understand the virus and how efficacious that virus is at the in vitro, at the early stage of the development. But the final product itself does not contain these cell lines. I just want us to reiterate that it does not contain that. Please let us be guided by that. Okay, thank you very much. There is a question here.
Thank you. You did very well. That's good. I can see that you are so passionate about it. I can see that people are so wound up with this. Thank you.
Yes. There are chain of questions, but I'm just going to leave them up. But there's this one, which will the church at some stage make vaccination on negative COVID test mandatory for those attending church services, then which is the best vaccine? So this is coming from someone who is asking that, okay, what is the church doing regarding the issue of vaccination? How are we helping people? And is the church a center? What are we doing to encourage them to vaccinate? But what is catching my attention most is, will the church at some point use the vaccination as a means of getting into church? Please, could you respond to that? Thank you.
Well, knowing my church, the church is not going to do that, because even in our statement, we say we encourage and we respect individual choices. That alone, that is already a statement that says we are not going to mandate. It's very clear in the statement. We encourage, okay? It's not we mandate. Number two, we respect individual choices. So please take away those fears that the church is going to make that imposition. We want to love each other. We want to embrace everybody. You see?
Thank you very much, Doc, for that response. Okay, I don't know if we have any further questions directly regarding the vaccine itself, its production, and then okay, the next question is the issue of which of them is the best. Please, could you attend to that also? Yeah, that was part of the question.
You know, with the present situation that we have, wherein the limits of the vaccination, the availability of vaccine. You see here in South Africa, we did not immediately order, because we said, okay, we want to find out how effective it is, that it doesn't have any side effects at all. So, and many countries, even the Philippines itself, so many countries waited. It's not like in America where they said, okay, we are going to order immediately. Now the question is which vaccine? The vaccine that is near to you, that is available, do it. Okay, even though the efficacy is only 65, but 65% is better than none. Okay, and if you can get, if you're going to be given a choice, I know Pfizer has about 95%. You see, but I also don't want to make a recommendation, because each one has also what we call a particular side effect. You see, and then if you're going to recommend, and then they will say, well, you know, I was actually hit with a side effect. But yeah, the vaccine that is available to you right now, get it immediately, because those vaccines, even though they are 65%, the 65% is based on the infection rate or getting the COVID virus. But many of these vaccines have a coverage rate or efficacy rate of 90% or above to prevent severe COVID. And that is what we are really wanting to have, to protect you from severe COVID. It might not protect you from getting infected, like having a sore throat or sneezing or maybe mild fever, okay? But 90% these vaccines are going to cover you for severe COVID and hospitalization.
Thank you very much. Dr. Johnson, do you want to come in to make some responses? Okay, while I get the signal from that, is this vaccine engineered? The virus, is it engineered? That is a question that has been ringing in some minds. Then two, are there deaths that are related, that are recorded as a result of vaccination? And if there are, what would have triggered that the vaccination? And I add also, if you add, so what is the use of vaccination if people then, I know we have talked about it, but this is a recurring question. What is the use of vaccination if people are still going to get infected anyway? I know you have addressed it, perhaps maybe for emphasis sake, what is the rationale behind even thinking in that line? So is the vaccine, is the virus engineered? Then are there people dying from the vaccination? And what are the conditions? Why are they dying from that? And three, why should I bother myself if at the end of the day, everybody, those who have been vaccinated will also be infected anyhow? So those are the questions. Maybe you want to just, Dr. Johnson, do you want to make some remarks so that my doctor can just have reflect over this and make his comments later? Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. Firstly, allow me to just thank the Llaguno for being a part of this wonderful program. It's been wonderful thus far. We've learned so much, and we're grateful for it. We are extremely grateful. I think my short comment, I think maybe I'll just speak a bit on just where viruses come from and vaccinations. But I feel a lot of people have been feeling as though the vaccine was this virus made by someone, and now someone is making a vaccine to control the world and to do things. So the unfortunate bit is that you can never really get to the bottom of where exactly a virus comes from. Since around 1980s, the HIV virus came along, and it's been causing us havoc up until now. People are quiet about it, but HIV is still causing problems. There are many other viruses which you also get. Every year people get flu jab. If you ever ask yourself why you get a flu jab every year, the reason you get a flu jab every year is because you get variants of flu every year. They come from Asia, from various countries, from Europe, all over the world. Every year it mutates. And so every year you've got a new mutation of a new virus. So into the virus, but a different mutation makes it more difficult for your immune system to be able to deal with it. And that's you need to be vaccinated every year against. Same thing with COVID. There've been a lot of allegations and things thrown around that, this thing came from China, China made this. The fact of the matter is we don't know. We don't know where it came from. What we do know, though, that this thing is here and it's killing people. People are dying. People are dying all over the world. I work in a hospital where I see people dying every day. And so that is why when we talk about vaccination and dealing with them and people protecting themselves, it's not only an issue of just, thinking about it and just being blasé about it. It's because the world has realized people are dying. And the only thing which we have realized thus far, which is able to prevent people from dying at a large scale, is vaccine. There are a number of questions which we may not be able to answer as doctors. I think Dr. Llaguno mentioned something earlier. There is some knowledge which we have, but the things which we can't answer, we are honest enough to say we don't know the long term. What we do know is that right now, because of vaccination, people in UK, people in a number of European countries are able to move around with no mask, able to shake their hands, able to hug each other, able to go to church. And so we've realized vaccines have changed the landscape, and people are living and surviving. And so because of such, we are able to advocate for it. And many of us have been vaccinated. I have been vaccinated. Dr. Llaguno was mentioning he was vaccinated. The Pfizer vaccine, I got the Johnson & Johnson one. And I'm still alive. I'm still healthy. I'm still loving God and worshiping God. And as steward of my body and of things I have, I feel it is the best I can do to protect myself and the people I care about. And that's why we are sharing this message. Let those people who are around, anyone and everyone should do the best they can to protect the people around them. And I think those are my few comments for now. Back to you, host.
Thank you very much, Dr. Johnson. Yes, Eda Llaguno, please, could you make more contribution to that? Then there's a question here to add to what you say. Did the General Conference or Loma Linda University participate in the production of the vaccines? You may want to add that to your comments also. Thank you.
Okay, first of all, the Loma Linda, no, they did not actually participate in the manufacture because it's quite expensive. And you have actually the big drug companies. That's the reason why the American government and also other governments in the world had come up with the exemption. They call it actually, let me just look at it. It's called a Public Readiness and Emergency Preparedness. This actually exempts these drug companies from answering liability for the next 4 years, because they say if we are going to implement that, then nobody is going to develop a vaccine and all of us are going to die. So let us just give them an opportunity for 4 years that they are not going to be prosecuted. And it's quite expensive to be able to do this, what we call manufacturers of the vaccine, you see. Okay, when it comes to your question about whether the vaccine has been engineered, I also agree with the doctor who just mentioned. Thank you so much, doctor, for your contribution. Whether it's engineered or not, we know that it is already here. That was the same thing that they mentioned for HIV way back in the 1985s when it was still around, 86, it was still new. They said, oh, this vaccine was actually engineered to kill a certain amount of people. And until now, that has not yet been answered. The question on whether, hello, The question of whether HIV vaccine is engineered has not yet been answered. But of course, so many people now are convinced that it is not really engineered, okay? But when it comes to this corona, we do not know yet. Let us just wait. But whatever it is, we know that it is already here, and let us try to solve the problem. The other thing is, has there been deaths? Yes, there have been deaths. I think I mentioned to you, out of 4 million people, I think there were 2 that were directly related. That's a very small percentage. Even in the Philippines, they noticed, you see that there were some people, very small, 0.0003%, 0.0003% of the cases that were actually vaccinated. And it's true, it can happen. Because you see, there is nothing in this world 100%. I mentioned earlier about we call aspirin. I know a lot of people are using aspirin. Don't you know that they said that 1 out of 10,000 who use aspirin die? You can even see that the death rate for aspirin is even much, much higher than this vaccine. You see, the question is, why is it people are not raising about the dangers of aspirin? Well, part of it is they have been informed. And number 2, you see, it is different when there is going to be a mass vaccination wherein people begin to think, wherein people just take their aspirin in some of these drugs, I tell you, are even more dangerous, yet they are beneficial. They are not going to be allowed. We always look into what we call the risk and benefit ratio. Okay.
All right, thank you very much. Before we close up the live streaming section, I just want to note, because there was a question on the issue of the herbs and so on. You see, when something is not regulated, when something is not standardized, it is very difficult to administer it to everybody just like that. Even that which is standardized, if they have variations in people, which may even put to question the standardization, the safety, which is in. So when we talk about herbs, we need to understand that there is still a lot of work to be done. It is possible that somebody and they are not well.